Zombie, the single-part video series where I take a look at a game that I might not necessarily want to do a Let's Play of, but I sure as hell want to talk about as a whole, and this is Top Gear 3000, released in 1995 for the Super Nintendo. What is it? Well, clearly it's a racing game, but it's one of those rare racing games that isn't in full 3D or in Mode 7 3D, right, like F-Zero or Super Mario Kart, that's still actually fun. And like as a genuine racing experience with like a career and everything. I'm sure there's more. I'm not that familiar with the genre from that time. I'm more so into the the golden age of racing games like the mid 2000s and such. But still, this wasn't super common back then. What do I mean by a career? Well, I mean you get money, you get like car damage and stuff like that. It's not super involved, but it's interesting because as you can see, this is basically just a more elaborate version of Outrun. Because, Outrun, it had this thing where it just basically did an illusion. The track was this plane in front of you that changed, but the car was its own separate layer. You know what I mean? You weren't really traversing a fully three-dimensional environment. There were games like that. I believe, in fact, there was, obviously there was virtual racing and a couple on the Super Nintendo and that utilized the Super FX chip and such, and Mode 7 or blast processing or whatever. And they kind of play like dog shit because they run it like 2 FPS because clearly these systems were not equipped to handle it. But because this game right here is such a well done illusion, although it does require a special chip, I think. It uses this like DSP4 ROM or something like that. You have to, if you want to get this working on an emulator, you have to download it separately. So even though, funnily enough, I don't even know if it's accessing it right now, because what happened was I loaded the ROM and it was like, hey bitch, you don't have that, so I went and found it, except it booted before I put it in the appropriate folder, so it makes me wonder, was it just like a safety measure or something, or I don't know. Also, look at this, we got some money now. Now, I don't think this is enough for anything, definitely not for an engine. No, not enough for an engine. Is it enough for tires? It is enough for tires, but I think I want to upgrade my boost. So you gotta make these decisions. Yeah, I gotta have just enough for the boost. Why would you want to upgrade your boost? Well, so you can, it tells you, right? Then and there. Look, boost 2. Ebony 9 plus 10.1 VL 6 whatever. Current amplifier, sustained power. As opposed to this one where, the same thing. Current amplifier, regular spec, right? So I'm assuming that now my boost will last a little longer, and because it's a cartridge-based game, the loading times are like what loading times? Bada boom, bada bing. But yeah, I think this is just a really fun example, and you know what's most surprising to me about this game? The fact that it's a sequel to what was already a very good racing game on the Super Nintendo of a very, very similar kind, which was Top Gear 2, which was the sequel to Top Gear 1 on the Super Nintendo, which was also quite good. But what's crazy that those two games, after going back to them, right before doing this, just to give myself a sense of perspective, oh my god, they are kind of not great to play today. They're a little choppy, a little bit, not smooth, right? This is actually quite smooth, I gotta admit. I don't know if it's running at 60 I guess it's running at 60 hertz necessarily, but clearly the game isn't updating, like the environment isn't updating at like a proper 60, as you can just see. But it's definitely not super low, like it's closer to like 20 something, right? Which is way better. Like I went back and played Top Gear 2, and that game is playable, but this is so much better. Like holy shit. I don't particularly care for this game's space age kind of theming going on, but it doesn't really matter. It's just an excuse to have some more visual variety. I would have preferred if they just stuck to the world landmarks that they had in the first game. The second game, actually. I don't know if the first game had it too. But the benefit is that, well, you just get a lot of interesting locations regardless, and it's pretty much the same thing. You just pretend that you're not in space anyway. I mean, look, it's just a generic desert area. You're driving like this Lotus-looking car. It actually looks more like a Ferrari Testarossa, I think. God damn, I call myself a car guy, and yet I can't tell most Ferraris apart. I know the 458, right? And the 488, I believe it was, Italia or whatever, it was a LaFerrari, of course. There's the F40, the F50, which was kind of ugly. Whatever. You get the idea. You know what genuinely surprised me? The fact that, like, they were allowed to make fun of those cars in Forza 5, I think it was, or 4, where Jeremy Clarkson was like, oh, you'll get it next time, implying that they kind of sucked. Like, he basically subtly implied that he didn't like the F50 very much, and I find that really interesting. Are they legally allowed to say something like that in a game where they've got the manufacturers in the game itself? Are they allowed to say anything bad about it? Because, I mean, like, come on, it's Jeremy Clarkson. You can't really expect him to be 100% non-critical about everything, because that's kind of like his thing. He's a very funny man, which is why Top Gear was such a freaking good show. Even though I don't really... it's because it wasn't a car show. It was like just a comedy that happened to focus around cars, and it was really well done and well written and really cleverly scripted in a way that didn't feel scripted. But you know it is scripted, but it doesn't feel that way. It's great. So anyway, as for Top Gear, the game, the Top Gear series is such an interesting sort of passage throughout the eras, because it's like you had Top Gear 1, 2, and 3, which are basically just this, right? But they just kept getting subtly better and better, and this is the best one of all of them, easily. I don't have very much money in this game, do I? I guess I should... No, I can't buy any more boosts. I guess I'll get just some more tires. Like, some more tires. I mean, like, better tires. You know what I mean? The music is also nowhere near as good as as Top Gear 2. If you ask me, the music in that game was sick. Here it's... I mean, listen. Like, it's fine. I can't really say it's gonna have me fucking banging my head, And I'm not saying that, like, oh, it needs to be metal or it's not good. No, I mean, I'm the kind of guy who will defend Sonic Forces soundtrack, and I guess even the... Well, actually, no, people generally like the cyberspace music from Sonic Frontiers, although, the boss themes are sick. It's just that, no, it doesn't have to be metal for it to be good, but the idea is that this is just not very inspired. It just doesn't sound very musically interesting to me. It does do a lot of cool things harmonically, but I can't really say that interesting chords does not interesting music make. You get what I mean? That's just kind of how it works. Kind of like how solid game mechanics doesn't necessarily solid game make. You need a lot of things to make a really great game. Pacing and context, narrative, art design, structure. There's plenty of games where it's like the individual pieces are there, but they're not put together correctly. I don't know. As for this game, though, it's very good. I mean, it's such a simple arcade formula, but it has just enough meat to it to keep it exciting. The fact that you have to make these decisions as to what to spend your limited money on, and the fact that you can, in fact, go ahead and earn some money on the track itself. Not on this track, though. Not every track has pickups, like actual collectible money. You can also get some of your boost back here, as you can see. Very well animated jump animation, by the way. Really great. So it's not often that I go back to this era of racing games. And what's crazy? That this actually came out... I think a full year, no, 2 years after Ridge Racer. Think about that. That's crazy, isn't it? And a year before Mario Kart 64, right? In fact, it came out a year after the first Need for Speed on the 3DO. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, the lineage of the Top Gear games. Well, it's weird how it went from this to then Top Gear Rally for the N64, which was really, let's be honest, it was more of a showpiece for the N64. Not quite as much as something like Wave Race, but still, it was a very well done arcade, well, sort of arcade, but also has like these, this interesting suspension system, which is quite punishing when it comes to how it wants you to handle corners. Then there was Top Gear Overdrive, which was basically just a pure, Need for Speed style arcade racing game of 1998, except I still prefer Need for Speed 3, because of course I do. And then there was Top Gear Rally 2, which was like, I don't know what the fuck that game was trying to be, because it was like, it had all these damage mechanics and stuff, and felt much more evil, as a racing game. It didn't really feel that arcade, and yet it still had an arcade feel to the driving. I'm not really sure what it was doing. I think the first one was actually better. Like, of course, you're probably going to expect there's a password. We're not going to need those, of course. But you probably expect, like, the second one to be a significant upgrade, because it was back then when games were, like, huge jumps forward technologically, just because of how things were in terms of, I don't think I can afford anything. I'm just going to have to just not buy anything for this race and hopefully afford something else next time. What came after? There was also Top Gear, this bike Top Gear game, Hyperbike. I forgot what it was called. It was actually very technically impressive N64 game. It was one of those really late N64 games which had like this almost PS2 kind of quality to it. And that's what was so interesting about the N64 and the Dreamcast, not just because of the way their controllers were, which is something I talked about in my Playing FPS Games Wrong video, where that's why I consider them to be their own generation. Not just that, because like with the Saturn and the PS1, well, even though the PS1 was so successful that it just ended up surviving through time anyway. But with those two systems, those felt like the next sort of semi-step from 16-bit, you know, where a lot of games, they had like this very 2D arcade feel to them, despite the fact that things were starting to change in their structure and stuff. But it wasn't until like the N64 to the Dreamcast, those games like really, those systems had a very different approach to graphics that had like all the shading and anti-aliasing sometimes and texture filtering for both systems actually. That was like the moment, like the filter generation, if that makes sense, when games started to look closer to how they look now. In fact, with the Dreamcast, some of them straight up do look like how they do now, especially because the Dreamcast still continues to receive releases. I can't fucking believe I'm saying that, but it's true, the homebrew scene, it's still a thing. There's still people making Dreamcast games. Like, what the fuck? That's amazing. So it's truly shocking that system's still getting releases. Obviously not huge commercial ones because like no shit, but it's fun. Not shocking in a bad way. I don't want to make it seem like it's a bad thing. It's great that there's still, and I feel like part of it is just the charm of like, well, the name, the Dreamcast, and it's just so cool. It's like, it feels like the system that never was, even though it saw a full release and a fairly successful launch actually. Like, that's not why Sega changed and became who they are now, and they failed. So no, they didn't fail. They're still around. In fact, Shadow Generation sold like 1 million copies in a day. Like, what the fuck? Was it a day or was it a week? I don't remember. But okay, no, Sega are doing fine. But what I mean by that is that it wasn't the Dreamcast's fault. It was the fucking Saturn, you know. And there's all these like theories like, oh, what if they had done it differently? I love how I'm talking about this while playing a Super Nintendo game. It's because the Super Nintendo was like, it's the one that's more powerful. That was the thing with Nintendo at the time. It's like they were actually technically better, but they were a lot stricter with their licenses, and they didn't have that great support. And they pretty much stuck that way for 3 generations. But then with the Wii, they were like, hey, let's have the console be dirt cheap. Let's appeal to a different market, and let's let anyone make a game for the Wii. Literally anyone, alright? Dora the Explorer on the Wii? Sure. Why not? Just any fucking random license. Ice Age? Oh, you know what? That's actually, I'm gonna do a Focus on B on that shit. I've got the thumbnail already ready. Ice Age 2. God, that game was awesome. I mean, most of that is probably nostalgia talking, but it was a really fun and little adventure game, you know? I'm gonna do a video on it separately, but you know, I'm probably gonna be playing the PS2 version. I'm gonna be emulating that one. You know why? Because that's the version I grew up with. Because I think I've probably said this before, but like, all of my friends had PS2s. Except for me. I didn't, because I didn't have any systems. But still, so it wouldn't feel right. Because technically, I think the best one is the 2007 Wii version, because it has like widescreen. I think it runs at 60 FPS as well. But no, you gotta get the version you grew up with. That's why I'm kind of pissed about this, but at the same time, I can't help it. That even though the PS2 version of Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2 is just objectively better, I would still rather play, or at least rather look at and experience the PC version, because that's just the one. It has to be the PC version. Specifically, it can't even be the Dreamcast. It can't even be the GameCube or Xbox versions, even though they're pretty much the same. It has to be the PC version. Don't ask why, just the specifics in the way that game renders, the way it looks and sounds. And man, that's just how it works in my head. You know, it's really interesting how we can pick up on such subtleties. For example, I also grew up with this game called Merhin Kart. Crazy Chicken Racing, whatever you want to call it. It's actually Merhin, it's a German brand. Or, no, it wasn't German. Was it Belgian? No, I think it's German. I don't know. And it was also on PS2, but I can guarantee you, if I were to play the PC version, then play the PS2 version, even if I were to like use emulation to make them the same resolution and such, it would still feel different. I would still know. I could still feel it in my heart that like, oh yeah, this is the different version. Kind of like with Sonic Heroes. Even though the PC version is basically just a GameCube version with slightly better audio quality and worse audio mixing, actually, even just by looking at them, I can kind of tell, like, hey, wait a second, it's not just the resolution. There's subtleties in the way that the environments are rendered and certain particles and clipping and whatever it might be, whatever. The idea is, Sonic Adventure DX, that one's very specific, actually, because there's this shine on Sonic that isn't there in the PC version. Sonic is more of a matte finish there. So that's kind of how I'm going to remember that game, you know, it's like the version I grew up with. I mean, nowadays, for convenience sake, you just play the GameCube version, of course, or even the original Dreamcast version, because you prefer 30 frames per second for some reason. And okay, I'm not really much of an FPS stickler, at least not as much as you'd expect for someone who primarily plays on PC, because, you know, I like a huge variety of games of different generations. I've talked about this before. It's like, I don't care if your game is on the fucking Vectrex, because I'm Mark apparently from Classic Game Room, or if it's on the Steam Deck, which is PC basically. No, because it's just a matter of what the game is. I mean, I was playing fucking Turok 3 the other day, and not even the awesome Night Dive Studios remaster. I was playing the Quake 2 one of that, and that's very well done. And it looks surprisingly good at 480p, by the way. Like, I was just experimenting, like, what if I played this at 480p instead of, like, you know, my native monitor resolution? And you know what? It still looks pretty damn cool. It's because the game was obviously, it was designed with that in mind, and it's just because they've updated it doesn't mean it doesn't look good anymore. How much money do I have now? Because I think I might be able to afford some slightly better tires, yes. Should I, or should I spend more money on my boost? Decisions! This is fun, this is great, this is that Gran Turismo set. God damn it. This is, I mean, this is before Gran Turismo, to be fair, but it was after Motor Town Tune Racing, whatever it was called. Should I upgrade this instead? Hold on, let me see. A gearbox, 5-shift, quasi-steel, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool, low ratio, let's go. That might have been a mistake. Who knows? Oh, damn, what was I talking about? But yeah, basically, I was playing like Turok 3 the other day, you know, and actually, I recommend... Here's the thing. I get that the expansion pack was supposed to make the system better, but it was clear that the console couldn't really keep up, you know? Because it's not just about how much VRAM it has, so... I do recommend you play most N64 games, even if they have its expansion pack support. I recommend you play them on the lower res mode and just like upscale it with your emulator or something like that, unless you're actually playing on an N64 for some reason. It's just such a foreign concept to me because we don't really have game systems here. Well, no, we didn't used to. Nowadays, like most of my friends will have a Switch or a PS4. I have this one friend with an Xbox One. You know, surely most people who I walk by every day have a PS5 or something. Yeah, that's today. When I was growing up, it was different. You either had a PS2 or a PC. That was pretty much it. I have one friend with a PS3, and that was pretty much it. No one owned a Wii, despite how well that system sold. No one owned a DS. I had this one friend with a PSP. One guy I knew, like, he lived near the villa that we have. It wasn't like a fancy villa or anything. It was just like a house that we happen to have, and we call it the villa. You know, because I know it's like kind of a stereotype. Whatever. But he had a PS1. But it was the PS1, the more modern model from the year 2000, which is why, like, for some reason in my head, that's the real one, even though I know it's not, considering especially because I eventually bought one just to see what it was like, and then I lost it, because of course I did. It didn't even work on the TV that we had. We had to go downstairs to, like, my grandparents, because they were the only ones who had a fucking TV old enough, and because I didn't know that you could, like, well, could you plug, composite cables into something that converts it to HDMI? Possibly, right? I'm sure there's something you can do about that. FrameMeister! Anyway. Oh man, the days before I knew how to just do this on my computer. But either way, oh damn, what was I talking about? I've completely lost track. Well, regardless, yeah, this game is really freaking smooth. It's so fun, it's just so weird that it's totally playable. Like, I didn't expect that, because I'm like, oh, it's from fucking illusion-type racing games, where it's not really a 3D environment. Doesn't matter though. This is fun. You got the track right there. You also have to manage your energy, which isn't that big of a deal, to be honest. You don't have to worry about it too much. Come on, overtake this guy. Yes! Oh no, wait, shit. I'm lapping that dude. I'm not actually... Well, I guess we're just going to finish in a second. How long have I been recording? Okay, we got a little more time for some more races. Hopefully I get to continue qualifying because, I love this, like, Mode 7 ass animation here. Where, yeah, secret bonus. I know, we got a little bit extra money. 30 grand, cool. I'm still in first, aren't I? Yeah, it says player 1 because I couldn't be fucked to change my name. But look at this pixel rotation. You're supposed to rotate. Just look at that. Oh, no, that looks real Sonic Mania. I love that shit. I don't know why. For some reason, that's like the first game I think of when I think of pixel rotation, when I know that there's many other games that do pixel rotation that isn't... Well, it's not really pixel rotation, it's sprite rotation. The pixels themselves don't rotate. It's the sprite as a whole, made up of pixels. Whatever. I can't afford that. Of course I can't. But what about the boost? Can I get some more boost so I can piss off the people who prefer classic Sonic? Nope. Gearbox? Software? I can piss off the people who like Borderlands, I guess. No tires either, right? Oh, I can afford tires. Cool, we get better handling. Hopefully that means something in a game like this. And I really am curious to check out other games of this kind, like the cruising games. It's so weird to think that the cruising games continue to exist throughout the late 90s, Cruis'n Exotica, Cruis'n World, despite the fact that you know, we had games like San Francisco Rush and then Hot Wheels Turbo Racing and Gran Turismo and Need for Speed and Test Drive. And you know what? I like Test Drive, the PS1 ones. I actually quite like the janky charm of Test Drives 4, 5, and 6. All right? Yes, Test Drive Unlimited is amazing. And the earlier Test Drive games were very, very revolutionary. In fact, the people who worked on those wanted to work on Need for Speed. So it's like, hell yeah. But I don't know, Test Drive 6 just has such a variety of cars and such cool locations. And it's so just chaotic, that game. It's insane. I gotta do a fucking video on it. I might do a Let's Play of it, just for the fuck of it, you know? Despite the fact that I wouldn't typically do a Let's Play of a racing game. Like a Focus on B episode like this one, yeah, sure, of course. I'm doing it right now. And I did one for Ridge Racer, and I did one for Sonic All-Stars Racing of my 10-year anniversary. It's so weird to think that at this point, by the time you're seeing this, my channel will be over 10 years old. Goddamn. But still, it's like, I might just do it, because that game is so chaotic, it's so weird. But I would have to stop myself from using save states, because it's so easy to just use save states and win all the bets, because the game is a betting system. There would be no tension then, right? So I think I would have to do it save stateless, which would just be like, fuck, I'd be going in dry, you know what I mean? I don't know how the hell I'd do that, but it would make it more interesting. I really hope the game just doesn't have like a game over state where it's like, oh, well, you can't race anymore, screw you. Because I could totally see that being a possibility with just the way that game was. In fact, believe it or not, lots of games throughout the 2000s even had game over states. Like, did you know that you could get a game over in Need for Speed Carbon? And like, seriously, you see like jail bars go over the screen and stuff. It's fucking crazy, you know? To be fair, when I was a kid, I used to think that just getting busted once was game over, so I would ALT and F4 because I was horrified of the busted scenes. I'm not even kidding. Now, part of that was probably because they used pretty low poly models, especially in Hot Pursuit 2. But low key, like whenever I got busted in a Need for Speed game, I was just fucking like, nope, get the fuck out of the game as quickly as possible. And I couldn't tell you because I was a kid. Random things scare you when you're a child. It's just it's interesting how that works, you know. And often it's when they have like shittier graphics. Like better graphics don't really do anything for me. You know, Animal Well, though, that game is really good pixel art, but holy shit, there's this, like, cat ghost that chases you. If you're wondering, Animal Well is this, it's a actually pretty contemporary release. It came out last year, by the time you're watching this. It's like a Metroidvania-type sort of puzzle platformer kind of game. Let's do one more race and we'll call it an episode, right? A lot of exploration. I'm thinking of doing a series on it. I'm just so scared because... man, that kind of game is so far from what I do. It's a platformer. It's a 2D platformer, sure. Except that it's not a linear stage-based thing. It requires so much more from you. This is going to be our last race, and we'll call it a day. We've been recording for quite some time now. Let's see. Let's see. Gain height. How much money do I have? Ooh, is that enough to buy another boost? I don't care about the jump parts. I just want more boost. God damn it. I can't play Sonic Rush. Yeah, fine, let's buy a jump. Oh, it's only one and it's a lot of money. Maybe I'm gonna need it? I don't know, I haven't played this far into the game, to be fair. Maybe there's bigger jumps. Speaking of which, there's this Atari game called Bump and Jump that's like basically Burnout. I'm thinking of doing a video where it's, Accelerate. Where I'm literally just playing a bunch of Atari games. Like, I'll just load up Stella and just play a fuck ton of Atari games, one after another, kind of talking about each one and how, oh, it's similar to this newer thing. Because Bump and Jump, it's a Atari game, 2600, that is literally Burnout. It's Burnout. Like, you drive and the jumps are manual, they're not like ramps or anything, but still, you crash into dudes. It's all done with super pixely shitty graphics, but it's amazing. It's actually just Burnout. All you gotta do is play this fucking MIDI version of Yellow Card breathing in the background, and you fucking got it. It's amazing. I wonder if each one of those is like 40 grand, or if it's like any just when you collect them, because you notice how it doesn't pop up multiple times, and maybe it does count for more. I'm not sure, but it's interesting how you can pick up money on the track like that, and you gotta make sure you get those recharge bars. Also, this game has a pretty good variety of tracks, because I haven't seen a repeat yet, which is very good. You know, I mean, I imagine it's not too hard to make tracks like this because they're not really made up of anything. I couldn't tell you exactly how these things are programmed, like the fact that because clearly it's not a true 3D environment, otherwise the game would run like complete garbage. Although, to be fair, F-Zero and Super Mario Kart, they have like these real 3D feeling maps of Mode 7. I don't know if this uses Mode 7. It uses a special version of like the DSP chip or something like that. So, as I already said, you gotta download a separate thing and then it works. It's kind of weird. Whatever. It's a really cool game though. It is a little disappointing. Like every single car is basically the same, but I don't know. In the future, every car will be the same. Every car will be a Tesla, because of course. And this is actually, oh fuck, we're almost out. Yeah, as I said, you don't have to worry about your energy too much, but it is a factor. You got to make sure you don't run out. I think you can keep yourself going with boosts, even if you're out of energy, and you got to be really careful here with judging your corners. But funnily enough, despite the odd illusion of 3D, I never really have too hard of a time judging exactly how fast I need to be going in order for me to get through a corner smoothly. You know what I mean? Look at this. It's actually really, really playable, and that's the takeaway from this video, that I've found like a totally playable racing game from this time that like is smooth and fun and addicting and awesome and has a lot of replay value. Definitely check it out. This game is 30 years old now and still kicks ass, honestly. I'm not sure why the copyright on it was like 19. Oh, that's very typical actually. Like Race Driver Grid, for example, its copyright is 2007, despite it actually coming out in 2008. Things like that happen sometimes. So either way, we're pretty much done with this. Where's the, yeah, there's the finish line, and 6th place. I think I still get to keep going, but we're not going to keep this video going any longer. This has been quite a long one. So this has been Focus on B, the single-part video series where I take a look at a game that I definitely don't think would make for a good Let's Play, but I still wanted to do a video about it. And this was Top Gear 3000 for the Super Nintendo. I'll see you guys next time on Focus on B.